Okay, welcome again to today's session. Our CRE PP1 continuation from question number 4 and 5, because I think by now we have dealt with question number 1, question number 2, 3, and 6. I think the benefits are always trickling down to the minds of the learners, and they're already preparing for this year's KCSE, and also others who are preparing for next year, and those who were preparing next year but one, because the knowledge still remains the same. I'm taking you through today through question number 4 in question 4 in paper 1, which comes from two sections. Today we deal with part 1 of question 4, which is having two sections: writing a prophetic message and Amos. So we start from the writing of prophetic messages, because we have said, who is a prophet? Of course, a prophet is somebody who receives a revelation from God to deliver to the people. Whatever that delivered to the people is called prophecy. So in this case, what comes to your mind? We are going to deal with the prophets in the Old Testament, in short. Then the question that comes from the introduction part of it there: list 6 terms used to describe a prophet. List 6 terms used to describe a prophet. Number 1, a prophet can also be called a messenger of God. Number 2, shepherd of God's people. Number 3, a watchman of people. Number 4, interpreter of God's word. Number 5, a mediator. Number 6, a seer. Number 7, a servant of God. Then number 8, nabii. Nabii is a Kiswahili word, but again it is used to describe the prophets there. Then again you have another question which has been tested, and also the learners were given 8 marks. Describe 4 categories of prophets in the Old Testament. Category, it means there is a way prophets have been categorized into different categories. So anytime you hear about the categories of the prophets, we have number 1, canonical prophets. Canonical prophets comprises of major and minor prophets. So in major prophets, remember, this is the prophets who have written lengthy information. So they are called major prophets, and they are 5 in number, and the acronym to know them is DJLE: Daniel, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Lamentation, and Isaiah. Then again, under the canonical prophets, you have the minor prophets, the 12 in number, from Amos all the way to Malachi, Obadiah, Nahum, Habakkuk. All those there, they fall under the category of the minor prophets. So category number 1 is canonical prophets. Then number 2, we have early prophets. These belonged to guilds or schools, and they lived together in communities under chief prophet. Like the time of Elijah was a chief prophet, and under him was Elisha. Then number 3, we have cultic prophets. These served in worship places and shrines like Bethel, and they were experts in prayer. And when you look at them, like the time of Eli, who lived in those worship places, and I remember the time of Anna, and as Anna was praying, Eli told Anna, your prayer is answered. So those are the good example of the cultic prophets there. Then we have prophetesses. These were women who were also called by God to give their prophecies. Deborah is an example of those prophets. So if you know those ones there, then you are good to go with the categories of the prophets. Then I'm going to ask a question there: what are the ways through which God revealed himself to the prophets in the Old Testament? How did God reveal himself to the prophets in the Old Testament? 1, through visions, like the time of Amos. Through dreams, God can reveal himself. Number 3, through natural events and experiences, like the time of Jeremiah. Number 4, through symbolic expressions, the time of Hosea. Number 5, through prayers, again, God can reveal himself there. Through dialogue, you see a communication, like the time of Jeremiah, God communicating. That is another way he reveals himself. Through prophet's mind, like at the time of Samuel. Then again, through natural objects, e.g., like we talk about the boiling pot the time of Jeremiah. Those are some of the ways through which God revealed himself to the prophets in the Old Testament. Then again, you get a question like this on there. Give ways in which the Old Testament prophets communicated their messages to the people. How did the Old Testament prophets communicate their message to the people? One, through songs. You see some prophets singing. Number two, through storytelling. Number four, through preaching or sermons, like remember the temple sermon of Jeremiah. Then through poetry, like Isaiah. Through symbolic actions, like Jeremiah. Then we have through lifestyle, the way this lived, like the time of a sale married a prostitute, and also through miracles. Those are the ways in which the Old Testament communicated their message to God. But again, would we ask today, does God reveal himself to the Christians today? How God reveal himself to Christians today? One, through visions, through dreams, by reading the Word of God, listening to preaching, through natural events, by answering their prayers, through the person of the Holy Spirit, and by God's grace and common good for others. Then we ask this question there, what are the ways in which the church is carrying out its prophetic role? One, preaching the good news. Two, translating the Bible into local languages. Three, condemning evils in society. 4, providing guidance and counseling. 5, providing civic education. Then, producing religious programs in electronic media, distributing Bible to other religious literature to the people. Then again, through providing medical facilities. Those are the ways in which the church is carrying out its prophetic role in the church today. Again, you can get another way in which the church is carrying out a prophetic role today, advocating for the laws which are not discriminative. You know, the laws which are discriminative. Providing formal education and training is another way. Creating job opportunities. The church can do that one there. Then providing social amenities like houses. It's another way. We talk about the prophets. What is the importance of the prophets in the Old Testament? Importance of prophets in the Old Testament. One, they acted as mediators between God and the people. Let us, the learner, stop again, bring the answer down there. They acted as a link between God and the people. Mediators and the link, or when you say they prayed on behalf of, they still talking of the same thing. They are mediators between God and the people. Then again, they communicated information about the future. This is what they made predictions. Number 2. Then again, number 3, they preached practical monotheism and condemned idolatry. That is another way that's another importance of prophets in traditional African traditional importance of prophets in the Old Testament. Then again, they condemned all forms of social evils. They condemned all social evils and the ritual sins. Then again, they acted as the conscience of kings. They acted as conscience of kings, where they advised them when they were consulted. Some acted as priests, another role. Some acted as priests, like Abraham, Moses, and Samuel. They led people in worship. So when you're saying that they acted as a priest, it means they were doing the priestly duties where they can go to worship over sacrifices on behalf of God. So don't bring that answer down there and see another role. They offered sacrifices to God because priestly duty covers all those areas which I have mentioned there. Then they foretold the punishment that could come to the people. They foretold the punishment that could come to the people for not obeying God. Then again, they gave people hope of being restored to God if they repented their sins. That is a good prophet, because sometimes after condemning them, talk about the judgment and punishment, then you have to give them hope at the end of the day. What are the characteristics of true prophets? Number one, they had God's voice calling to be his spokesman. They had a God's voice calling to be the spokespersons. So that's one of the character, waliitwa na Mungu, walisikia sauti yake. Then number two, they were obedient to God. Every time they were called, they obeyed God. Then number three, they believed that God was the only God of the universe, and that he was the Lord of nations. They believed that God was the only God of the universe. Then number four, they stood for the covenant relationship of Yahweh. They stood for the covenant relationship of Yahweh. Then number five, they understood that God cannot compromise evil. That's what they do. They understood that God cannot compromise with evil. Then again, they spoke and acted with authority and courage. They spoke and acted with authority and courage. That's what they did there. Then they led a life that emulated God's attributes. So, like now, and sometimes you say there, they understood God to be holy, and therefore they lived holy lives. Then again, they acted as mediators between God and his people. Then they communicated God's message. Another point, they were prayerful, they spoke the truth, they were not materialistic in nature, and they had faith in God. Those are the characteristics of true prophets. Then, on the other side of the coin, what are the characteristics of false prophets in the Old Testament? They asked for payment for the services, one. Number two, they were self-appointed. No one appointed them. They didn't even receive a call from God. They had self-appointment. Their prophecies were not fulfilled. That's another thing that we see there. Then again, they spoke what the people wanted to hear. So also their prophecies were not fulfilled. They spoke what people wanted to hear. They raised false confidence among the people. They did not speak with authority when challenged. Then they spoke about doctrines or the teachings that were contrary to the covenant way of life. Their lives were not exemplary. There's something you could emulate from them. That's why we say they were hypocrites. Then they wanted favors from the kings. Then the last one, they undermined the works of the true prophets. Then again, we look at the differences between true and false prophets in the Old Testament. What are the differences between the true and false prophets in the Old Testament? One, prophecies of the true prophets uh, prophecies of the true prophets were fulfilled, while those of the false prophets were not fulfilled. That's one of the differences. We say in this case here, true prophets, the prophecies which they gave the people, it came to be realized or fulfilled later, but those of the false prophets, they were not fulfilled. True prophets, they received God's revelation, unlike the false prophets who didn't. Then number three, true prophets spoke with authority and courage, unlike the false prophets. Then number four, the true prophets understood the nature of their prophecy, unlike the false prophets who did not. Then again, number five, true prophets were faithful to God, while false prophets were faithful to the spirit world, because that's what they were deriving their power from. True prophets were monotheistic, while the false prophets were polytheistic in nature. They worshipped many gods, whereas the true prophets, they worshipped only one God. Then, true prophets condemned social evils in society, unlike the false prophets who entertained them. So, Those are the differences between the false prophets and the true prophets in the Old uh, Testament. What are the similarities between the traditional African and the Old Testament prophets? Because we realize in African story there were prophets, and also in the Old Testament there were prophets. Is there any similarities between the two of them? That is the similarities between the traditional African and the Old Testament prophets. One of the similarities in both, they were expected to obey God. That's a similarity number one. And again, number two, both they were consulted to reveal God's will to people. Number three, both predicted the future events. We see both of them doing the same thing. Then number four, both were called by God to pass the message to the people. Every community had a prophet, and God called them to pass the message to the people. Both were obedient to God. Both of them, they're obedient to God. You can see they obeyed God every time. Whatever they were told to do, they did. Both again warned the people of impending dangers of disobedience. Then again, both performed the work of diviners and the medicine men. And then we see there both received a divine calling from God. Another point that most of them did not receive formal training. There's no training they went to. Then again, both were consulted by the people during the crisis. And the last one is that both were people of high integrity and moral righteousness in the society. But again, what's the difference between traditional African prophets and the Old Testament prophets? What's the differences? Number one, the Old Testament prophets had a personal relationship with God, while traditional African prophets received their message from the Spirit and ancestors. That's the difference. You can see there. The true prophets in the Old Testament had the personal relationship with God, whereas those of traditional African society prophets, they received their message from ancestors and the spirit world. Then, number two, traditional prophets, uh, they could not, uh, the office could be hereditary. Traditionally, the prophetic office could be hereditary. While in the Old Testament, it was not hereditary. You see that if you come from a family of the prophet in TSC, another person takes over after you, then that continues until the end. But in the Old Testament, that was not the thing there, that once you are done with your things, then another person can become a prophet who is called by God. Then again, traditional African prophets were mostly concerned in solving and healing of community crises when it's them. While in Old Testament prophets, they dealt with natural issues and crises. So traditional African prophets were mostly concerned in solving and the healing of community crises. While in traditional Old Testament, prophets dealt with natural issues and crises. Then number four, the authority of some traditional African prophets came from ancestors, that's true, and spirit, while that of the Old Testament, it was directly from God. Then number five, the traditional African prophets delivered a message to the people in their communities, while Old Testament prophets delivered message to the people and other nations outside Israel. That means, there, as you can see, it's wider, whereas that of the traditional African prophets, it's limited to the communities where they're coming from. So those are the differences between traditional African prophets and the Old Testament prophets. So then we look at the ways in which prophecy is practiced in the church today. Do we have the prophecy practice in the church today? Yes. One, by pastors and priests spreading the gospel in the church. When you see them spreading the gospel, that means prophecy is being practiced in the church today. Then number two, where when you see the pastors and the priests telling the people that God will punish those who disobey him, still the prophecy is going on. Then number three, through telling people that there is life after death. Yes, that shows prophecy. It's going on by foretelling future events. That's another way in which prophecy is practicing. Then by condemning social injustices in society, because you look at most of the prophets in the Old Testament condemn social evils the same way. If today they are condemning things like corruption, that means the prophecy is ongoing. By living exemplary life or acting as the role model to others is another way. Then again, by guiding and counseling leaders on the covenant way of life. Then we talk about what are some of the social economic evils that a true prophet of God could condemn in modern society. Which are these social economic evils a true prophet of God could condemn in our modern society? One, bribery and corruption. That one can be condemned. Sexual immorality, number two, it can be condemned. Number three, discrimination. Number four, murder. Number five, abortion. Number six, land grabbing. That one should be condemned. Number one should be point number one. Exploitation. Another point. Number seven. Number eight, leadership rankles. Again, that is something that we can condemn today. Then again, gender based violence should be condemned by the strongest terms possible. Then the last one is religious hypocrisy, which you can see it's widespread in Kenya today. Then we have the ways in which false religion is manifested in Kenya today. State ways in which false religion is manifested in Kenya today. One, emergence of cults. Two, false prophecy about end times. That one is also common. Number three, people claiming to be the Messiah or God. We have had Jesu of Tongaren. We have had others calling Nabi somebody from Western Kenya. That's a common thing in Kenya there. Then again, human sacrifice is another thing. Selling of anointing oil or water for cure, it's a way in which false religion is manifested. Consulting mediums, fortune tellers is another way false religion is manifesting. Then another point is commercializing spiritual gifts. For you to be healed, you must get some money to receive the gift of healing. Devil worshipping. Then the last one, sin criticism, where we worship God alongside other gods there. So when you look at the characteristics, you realize we have mentioned of the true prophets is that they faced challenges. And the question you're asking there, what are the problems faced by the church ministers in their work today? Do church leaders face problems in their work today? That's a question that you can be sleeping. You wake up in the morning, you see question number 4C, list 7 problems faced by church ministers in their work in our society today. One of the problems, number one, lack of money or resources to pay their salaries. That's true, is a problem. Lack of money or resources to pay for their salaries. Number two, poor housing or lack of housing for themselves. These are the men of God living in places which are so funny. Then number three, some Christians might reject ministers. Rejection. Then number four, what they preach might make them unpopular with some members of the congregation. Is a problem they go through. Then again, they might work in geographical hostile environments where they might suffer from diseases, drought, etc. Then again, another point is traveling long distances is the problem these church ministers are facing through. Then again, we have some members may not cooperate with them. Lack of cooperation is another problem. Then they might face lack of cooperation from the church leaders. Then again, some of them may suffer a language problem. It's another problem, language problem, too much demand on their time. That's true. Some of them, pastoral problem might be too complex to deal with, and Sometimes there is what you call temptation from worldly pleasures or materials. Those are the problems the church ministers go through as they practice their work today. Then, what are the reasons why Christians today face danger and hostility as they play the role of prophets? What is the reasons why Christians today face danger and hostility as they play their role as prophets? One, their prophecies create conflict between them and political leaders. That's one reason why they can face danger and hostility. Then, two, when their prophecies come true, they are seen to be enemies of their communities. Then, number three, people do not want to hear their prophecies. Number four, they are persecuted or threatened with death. Then, number five, some Christians get discouraged. They lose hope in the face of temptations. It is another reason why they face danger and hostility. Then again, very few Christians have the gift of prophecy, hence, they become endangered due to their small number. Then again, there are many false prophets who contradict their messages. So, those are some of the reasons why Christians today face danger and hostility as they play their role as the prophets. Then again, we say that is the end of part one. Writing of prophetic message is a question number 4, and we are expecting another session later. We discuss about Amos, which also comes in question number 4. Until then, have a good time. And I said that the only way to get all that information as stress-free resting in your place is give me my CRE book, which you can contact me and also get a copy of your own for the success of your grades and also delivering the content. If you are a teacher, I wish you all the best as you continue listening and also waiting for the next video. And also don't forget to subscribe, like the video. In case of any question, don't hesitate to ask the question. Thank you and have a blessed time ahead.